How many of you out there are doing Peter Panda dances at night? Right? I'm a big fan of routines, but at some point, right, routines can get problematic. Right? Daddy, I need you. Zoe, coming Zoe. Mommy, now I need you. What is it, sweetheart? Can you take Daddy? I'm over my bad dream now, and I want to get some sleep. Right? So even when they get to bed, right, sometimes there's still issues. And when they get older, right, they're fast asleep, and then all of a sudden, yikes! I liked it better when he just screamed from his bed when he was hungry. So these problems with bedtime resistance and night waking, they can have consequences. Because interrupted sleep is a form of torture in prison camps, and there's a reason why. It's brutal. I was so exhausted that I walked into a wall in my house that had been there since, like, forever. When you're so tired that you walk into stationary objects, it can't be good. This was what one of the moms in one of our studies said, reflecting on her experience with kids who wake up in the night. So today I'm going to talk to you a bit, just a quick primer on kind of what is sleep and why do we sleep, what's normal in terms of preschool-age children's sleep, what are some common sleep problems that young children have, and what are some solutions. Because, you know, people who say that they sleep like a baby, they usually don't have one. So this is what happens at night. We all go through sort of various cycles of sleep, and they vary in terms of being kind of that border between awake and REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, where we have dreams, and we go into deeper sleep. And there's a couple things that happen over the course of the night. One is that this is a graph for children, but this similar pattern happens with adults, that we spend more time in deep sleep early in the night, and that decreases as the night wears on, and there's more time spent in REM sleep. And we cycle in and out of these stages, where infants and preschool-age kids, their cycle is about 60 minutes, and adults is about 90 minutes. And it's right in this stage here where many children wake up, and most people wake up at some point during the night, and that's not a big deal. Unless you're an adult and then you wake up and you can't get to sleep, then you have insomnia. Or if you're a little one and you need your mom or dad to help you get to sleep, then that's a problem more for parents than for children. And then it also notices that as the night goes on, we're spending more time in REM sleep later in the night, and then you see some of the issues with children of having nightmares, and nightmares tend to happen more often in the early hours of the morning because you're having longer periods in REM sleep. So there's another cycle that happens, and it's kind of called the alerting cycle. So this is the counter of feeling tired. Right? Sometime early in the morning, we get kind of perky and energetic, but as the day wears on, sometime around, after lunch, right, we all need a coffee or a bit of sugar, or if you're a toddler, you take a nap. And then you get this kind of peak of energy again, right around supper time when you're trying to get supper ready, and they're full of zip, and then they kind of dip back into sleep again. So that's kind of what happens in terms of the alerting cycle. Now, over time, something else happens with kind of sleep drive and sleep debt. As the day wears on, our drive for sleep increases. And I got two graphs here. One is for boy Ethan in the blue, and the other is Jake in the yellow. So our drive for sleep increases until we're tired, and then as the night wears on, it decreases. So when we wake up, we have a low drive for sleep. Now, these two children are different. Right? Ethan's kind of goes back to 0, and Jake's doesn't quite go back to 0. So what happens over time as this cycle repeats is you get a sort of a sleep debt. Ethan's resets, so he hasn't got a sleep debt as the days go on, but Jake does. And if any of you have adolescents, or remember what it was like when you were an adolescent, adolescents generally need more sleep than elementary school children and are far less likely to get it. So they get their sleep debt increases as the week goes on, and then they catch up. They have to pay back that debt by sleeping in on Saturday morning. So this is what happens over time when children or anyone doesn't get enough sleep during the night. So why do we sleep? Well, everybody sleeps. Some love it. We have happy kids, we have a happy marriage, a happy home, but more importantly, we have good sleep because sleep deprivation is nasty, nasty, nasty. And in the U.S., right, here's a quick headline. U.S. National Transportation Safety Board recommends federal aviation develop fatigue training. Why? Because as humans, we really can't counteract our natural tendency to want to be asleep between 1 and 3 a.m. in the morning. And so if you look, most of the natural disasters, or not natural disasters, disasters involving people tend to occur between 1 and 3. That's the time when there's the highest likelihood of single vehicle fatalities on the roadway because we're overwhelmed with sleep. And in fact, if we take adults who are sleeping well and we randomly assign them to 2 different conditions, those that sleep well and normally for a week, and the other group we sleep deprived, just an hour or 2 for 7 days. And then we run them through a simulator in terms of a driving test. Some of them get alcohol and some don't, and we find out what happens. The sleep-deprived group performs as poorly as those who are legally impaired. So just a little bit of sleep deprivation can have significant effects. If we start looking at other reasons, there's sort of biological, psychological, and social issues related to sleep. Biologically, we have this sleep drive and debt that I just mentioned. But what happens when you go to sleep? A variety of things. In terms of the brain, it's sort of a time to rebuild, sort of tune and reorganize the circuits. And that process helps us understand the psychology that is affected by sleep. We know that memory is affected by sleep. So if we take groups of people, we teach them some task, one group gets to sleep, has a nap, and the other group doesn't, the group that naps does better. Something happens during the time that we sleep that our memories get consolidated. So those university students who are pulling all-nighters would be far better if they just had a nap before they tried to get tested in the morning. So it also affects our learning and our regulation of mood and attention. And it also affects our ability to think in more complex ways. Sometimes you're so dopey tired you can't even think straight. And that psychology we've looked at in a number of studies. So we've looked at studies with elementary school children, preschool children, and young adolescents. And what we find is the higher levels of sleep problems, these problems like just bedtime resistance and night waking, the more problems children have, the more emotional and behavioral problems they have. Even if we account for everything else that we know contributes to emotional and behavioral problems in children, such as things like difficult child temperament, parents' own emotional problems, or family dysfunction. So it's sort of like with these children that sleep problems make their emotional and behavioral problems even worse. And then you can see how these sort of psychological factors contribute to the social factors. When you got grumpy children and grumpy, tired parents, there's conflicts and meltdowns. What are some other effects of inadequate sleep? Well, the most immediate effect of having inadequate sleep is you're tired. But with some children, they can tend to look a bit hyper and get increased arousal. They're so overtired that they actually look like they're excited. They also tend to get a bit more irritable, negative mood, a bit cranky, but many of us have probably experienced that at some point when we're so tired, we're giddy tired, and children can get a little silly. We also have difficulties in regulating our mood, attention, and behavior, and it's also associated with increased hunger. And there's emerging evidence that suggests that individuals who have shortened sleep cycles, shortened sleep duration over time, tend to be more obese as well. And we have increased susceptibility to illness. So what's normal in terms of sleep amongst young children? First, let's take a look at the average number of hours that children sleep. These data are from National Sleep Foundation in the US poll, and they talked to about 800 different parents of children aged 0 to 6. And this yellow line shows the average number of hours that children are sleeping in a 24-hour period. So for younger children, that includes naps. And so we see that, at about 2 years old, most children are sleeping 11 hours, although 25% of children are sleeping 10 and a half or less. Well, 25% of children are sleeping 12 hours or more. And by the time you get to age 5, it's about 10 hours on average. So these graphs show that children vary in terms of the amount of sleep that they get, and also they vary a bit in terms of the amount of sleep that they need. But this green line is also very important. This would be kind of experts' recommendations of the number of hours that children should be sleeping. And that line is consistently higher than the average or this upper limit of what a lot of children are sleeping. So about 2 hours less than what we would recommend. What about naps? Right? So these are the percentage of children who nap during a day. And really, when you look at children less than age 2, really, virtually all of them nap, about 100%. And that drops down to age 5, where about 15% are napping. Now, there's another interesting issue, which is the duration of naps. So overall, from age 1 to elementary school age, the total kind of average time children are napping decreases. But really, between age 2 and 1 and 5, the average length of a nap doesn't change. So it's not as if children slowly nap for shorter periods of time. It's not like they start off at age 2 napping 2 hours and they go to an hour and 45 minutes until they get down to 15 minutes. They nap or they don't. And so these percentages are the number of children that nap. And so children go through a phase where they give up naps. But it's not like that napping period just gets shorter. So this is some basics about kind of what's normal in terms of children's sleep. What about sleep problems? Here's a study out of Quebec where they talked to thousands of parents of children from age 2.5 through to age 6. And they looked at these two common sleep problems, bedtime resistance and night waking. And this is when parents are reporting that children are waking at least once every night. And you see that, whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen. At age 2.5, about a third of children are waking once a night. And by age 6, that decreases. With problems with falling to sleep, that means taking at least 30 minutes to fall asleep, the percentages don't vary too much, from about 10, 16. And I think the two issues that a lot of parents sort of struggle with, one is they think that children are just going to grow out of it. And although this does decrease, we know that about half of the young children at like age 1 or 2 that have sleep problems will continue to have sleep problems years later. The other kind of common misconception, I guess, is that most parents think there's nothing they can do except wait for them to grow out of it. So hopefully by the end of today, we'll have a few ideas that may help. So those are the two most common problems. There's a variety of other kind of less common problems that children may have. Restless legs may be one of them. This would be where children's legs kind of feel tingling. They feel like they have to move a lot. Not very common, but can certainly be disruptive for children's sleep. And dealing with those usually, well, actually dealing with most of these things, getting more sleep helps. In that case, it's typically something that you might want to talk to your family physician about. Sometimes iron supplements help or other medications. Snoring and sleep apnea. Quite a few children snore, 10 to 12%. And this is usually when they get congested, or it may be that their adenoids are enlarged. And a smaller percentage have sleep apnea. This is where children snore very loudly and have difficulty breathing. And if you have a spouse that has sleep apnea, you know that they're snoring regularly, but what's most distressing is when they stop. Because when they stop snoring, they stop breathing. And then eventually, like their brain kicks in and goes, breathe, breathe, and they gasp. Their brain kicks in and forces them to wake up. So what's happening is that they're waking up repeatedly through the night. And with children, what happens is, obviously, they're sleep deprived, but they also tend to have academic problems and also are more likely to have problems with hyperactivity. Now, unlike with adults where you may have a CPAP machine, the treatment for children is usually having your tonsils or adenoids removed. And in fact, when they do that with children, these sorts of academic and behavior problems tend to decrease significantly. The other kind of common issue are nightmares versus night terrors. Now, lots of children have nightmares, and as I said, they tend to occur during REM sleep, which is usually later in the night, and they're very upsetting to children. In contrast, sleep terrors or night terrors occur earlier in the night, and the child looks very distressed. They look terrified, hence night terrors. But when or if the child wakes up, they won't be distressed. It is very upsetting to parents. So the solutions for this, in both cases, they may improve if you just decrease stress and try to increase the amount of sleep that children are getting. And the difference is that really if a child's having a nightmare, you want to reassure them, confirm that things are okay and kind of help them ease them back into bed. With night terrors, the goal is keep them safe and protect them from flailing around and hurting themselves. Don't really try and wake them up. And there's a couple other solutions, but those are kind of the quick ones. And finally, sleep talking and sleepwalking. Lots of kids, probably half, maybe up to once a week, may be sleep talking. and that can be quite amusing, and they tend to be unaware of it the next day, and really there's nothing that really needs to be done about it. Sleepwalking, similar to night terrors, tends to occur earlier in the evening, and the key there, again, is not to really wake the child, but to protect them. You want to make sure that they're not going to walk over, they're not going to fall and hurt themselves, they're not going to walk out a window, they're not going to walk out your front door. So really it's about safety in those cases. So when are these sorts of sleep problems? When is it a problem? I think the key here is that there's a relationship between what children are doing and parents. Because, you know, when the baby's awake and the toddler's awake and both are in bed, and then he doesn't want to go back to sleep, and you know what? It would just be easier if we didn't have to sleep. But eventually we get exhausted, and although kids think it's cute when their parents are exhausted, most parents don't. The impact of sleep problems on children lies heavily on mothers. This is a survey of just women in general, but 7% of women say they have no one to help them in terms of caring for a child at night. And if you put this together, 60% of women are saying between never and only a few nights a week are they actually having a good night's sleep. And the women who experience poor sleep tend to have a variety of consequences during the day. High stress, they tend to spend less time with family and friends. They're too tired for things like sex. They drive drowsy at least once per month. And remember, driving drowsy is virtually equivalent to driving drunk. And in the past month, we're late for work. So there are not insignificant consequences on families when children have sleep problems. So when we start to think about this in our research, we see that there's a complex interaction between children's sleep and its effects on children and its effects on parents. And we think that this affects parents' affect, their moods, the way they think about things, and their behavior in kind of a complex cycle. And some of the moms in particular we've talked to say, you know, we can always tell when they're starting to fade. Molly's shoving her brother, stealing his toys. That's when we can see the wheels are going to come off the apple cart and we better get moving. There's times when they go to bed early because we can see that they're tired. Right? So, you know, this mom's talking about the conflict that happens when the children are overtired. But children get older, right? And, you know, Michael, what are you doing out of bed? I'm getting a drink of water. Oh, Michael, now what? I heard something and I got scared. Okay, leave your door open and the light on. We're here. You're safe. Everything's going to be fine. Go to sleep. Daddy, wow, what do you want now? Just an extra hug. Right? So sometimes, you know, that's what children need. But sometimes it gets pretty bad. I don't think that I'd ever hurt them or I would have wanted to hurt them, but you get frustrated and I might have yelled a little, maybe, which when a parent tells us that means I yelled a lot, often, more than I really wished. Well, we would try the let them cry it out thing, but it was usually harder on my husband than on me. So I'd get up just to calm him. That way my husband could sleep. And if that wasn't a consideration, do you think you'd let him cry it out? Yeah. And so one of the things that parents have told us, in particular with night waking, is that it is a family issue. Right? That, you know, it would be fine, but I don't want my husband up, and I don't want the dog and the baby up, so it's easier just to go in and lie down, and then he goes to sleep quick. Or other parents will say, you know, I'm great at setting limits. You know, I can go in there, I can be firm, I say, that's it, go back to sleep, and that's fine, Monday to Wednesday. But by Thursday, I am so exhausted, it's like all about just getting back to sleep. And then they just crawl into bed, and everybody goes back to sleep quickly. So this issue of are these sort of common sleep problems really a problem? Well, it depends. So if we take something like children's night waking, it depends on the parent's response. Co-sleeping, going in and sleeping with your child, that works. Highly effective and very rewarding. Child's crying and awake. You go in, you lie down, child falls asleep. Whew, that's better. Sleeping child, crying child, I go with the sleeping child. I feel better as a parent because, you know, I've helped my child go back to sleep and I'm not awake. Wake in the middle of the night, sleeping in the middle of the night. I'll go with waking or sleeping in the middle of the night. So, you know, that's one solution. But sometimes when it gets to yelling and screaming in the night, not a very helpful thing, right? To help kids calm down and relax and go back to sleep when they're getting yelled at. And then it has effects, certainly on the duration of sleep, the fatigue, and the mood and behavior. So when does it become a problem? It sort of becomes a problem when parents say, I can't deal with this anymore, right? Or sometimes it becomes a problem when the children say, I can't deal with this anymore. My one case was the girl was 12, and she'd never slept independently through the entire night. And she wanted to have sleepovers and stuff. And she said, enough is enough. I got to learn how to sleep on my own. So somewhere from birth to teenage, children have to learn how to sleep on their own. So what are some solutions for these common sleep problems? I'm going to talk to you about a treatment program that myself and colleagues have worked on called Parenting Matters. The way we ran this is we had a booklet that we mailed to parents, and it was sort of a 6-week program. Parents worked through step by step, and they had a couple phone calls from a telephone coach. And the program basically this is it sort of in a nutshell. The foundation of it is your relationship with your child. Then we talked about kind of working with your child's natural rhythms, adding in routines, and finally rewards. So we all love our children, but sometimes when bedtimes last 2 hours, and they last 2 hours every night, and it's supper time, and you can feel the tension mounting, and you're saying to yourself, how long is it going to be tonight? This is not fun. And then once they finally get to sleep and you flop on the couch exhausted, then they wake up 2 or 3 times a night. And when that goes on week after week, month after month, you go, I love him, I just don't really like him. It's not like a lot of fun anymore. So, one of the key things is, I think about this, is getting your head and your heart in the right place. So getting your head is learning about sort of what's normal in terms of children's sleep. And then, well, what shall we do today? Oh, nothing special. Hear ye, hear ye. We declare this to be an official nothing special day. Ooh, let's do our nothing special dance. Ooh, this always happens on nothing special days. Something special always leaks in. So the key is starting to have fun and trying to remember kind of what your child is like. What do you really like and love about him or her? Because we all tend to accept advice, correction more from people that we have a good relationship with. So this is foundational, not just for sleep, but for anything in parenting. The next is thinking about the child's rhythms. So this depends on their age and the signs and the cues that you pick up. Well, these cues are pretty easy. When you find your child asleep with a book on their face, you go, looks tired. Or if they come up, I'm sleepy, so you can tell me to go to bed if you want. Right? Those cues are pretty easy. So you also have to figure out, what's a bedtime that not just works with your child, but also with your family. And this gets complex. All families have kind of goals and needs and wants, and if you've got parents that are working shift work and they come home late, parents want to spend time with their children, children want to spend time with their parents, but your child's natural bedtime, they would really like to go to bed at 7, but if they go to bed at 7, you only see them for 15 minutes, so how do you make that happen? It's tricky, but that's trying to figure out what's a bedtime that works for your child and for your family. The next is routines. Anybody here ever picked up a little toddler and threw him in the air? He goes, what? Do it again, do it again. Why? Because they love repetition. Do it again, because they love repetition. Why do they? Because that's how children are at preschool. Well, let's imagine you're working in, your office cubby hole, and you're plugging away at something, and your boss comes in and says, okay, I want you to stop that now. Now this is what I want you to do. So you just get started, and then she comes back and says, no, I don't want you to stop that, and then I want you to do this. Or, you're out there framing a house, and you got the wall almost ready to go up, and boss, no, stop that, I want you to go and work on the roof. And you go, but I almost, no, go over there and work on the roof. But no, go over there and work on the roof. That's the life of a preschooler, right? They get told what to do countless times throughout the day. They have very little control. And then we'll factor into that the fact that they don't really understand time. Mom, we had the best time at the park tomorrow, right? So today, tomorrow, yesterday, these are concepts that children are just beginning to learn. And when you say, not now, just 5 minutes, what do they hear? They just hear, not now, right? 5 minutes, right? It's like this vague thing that they don't really get. So routines do a number of things. They provide structure and consistency to help children understand what's coming next. It also helps kind of quiet and calm them down. Like imagine if in your work setting, you never knew when your boss was going to come in and tell you to do something different. Like you'd always be kind of on edge, kind of hyper aroused, which goes against what you want when your child goes to sleep. So in addition to having a good routine, the other thing we suggest is put it on paper. And you can get your child to help with this. And there is something wonderful about having a routine like this on the wall. Right? And we've got words there, but more important is pictures. Kids don't do so well when they can't read, right? So we have little pictures. And then it's like it has its power on its own. Like let's say this is your morning routine, right? You could tell your child every single day for years on end, and eventually they'll get the sequence down, right? But that's a lot of nagging. Or you could say, okay, you're dressed, let's go see what the chart says next. And they walk over and they go, ooh, make the bed, ooh. And they go do it. And you go, didn't I just tell you that? And you go, yeah, but the chart says I got to do it. Go figure. We ran this program and we did it with parents who had sleep issues with their children and also discipline issues. And we talk about routines there too. And routines throughout the day, but also during the week. Because again, children don't really understand what today and tomorrow is happening. So this one, one of my favorite ones was this, there's a child named JK, and so he went to a sitter every other day, and because he, it alternate weeks, so one week it would be Tuesday, Thursday at JK, and the next week it would be Monday, Wednesday, and he has no idea what's going on, but he hated daycare. So we talked about trying to set up a little chart to help the child understand what day it was. And so the telephone coach is talking to the mom and says, well, what could you do to help him know? Like, you can't put daycare on it. Well, maybe I'll put a sticker. Oh, great. What does he like? Scooby-Doo. All right, we'll try that. A couple weeks later, we call back. I said, so, how did the chart work? She goes, it's great. He goes down in the morning now, and he goes, woohoo, it's a Scooby-Doo day. And you go, you know what, I will take a miracle whenever it happens. Right? That is miraculous. Nothing changed, but suddenly the fact it was a Scooby-Doo day, suddenly daycare was fun. If it works, go with it. It doesn't happen often. Even if it doesn't happen, routines still are important, right? Because there's this mix of things when it comes to bed in terms of what children want and what they need. Oh, come on, it's sure it's time for bed. Can we play that fun game where you chase around the house and get us to put on our pajamas? Let's play that other fun game where you march into your rooms and put on your pajamas this minute or there will be no bedtime story. Later it gets, the worse their games are. Right? So children want this, right? But they need that. But in fact, they need both, right? But it's all about timing, right? A good night's sleep starts when you wake up. So a good routine starts by basically waking up at the same time or as close to the same time as you can every day. And children need lots of things during the day. They need time to be active, to have fun. They need time with mom and dad. They need time for love and laughter and all those things, so that when it's time to go to sleep, all your child's needs are met. Right? They have had the fun. They have had the interaction. They have had, right, if we think about an evening routine, right, a snack, bath, brushing their teeth, the story, the washroom, hugs and kisses, so that at that point, the only thing they really need is to go to sleep. And if they haven't had this other stuff during the day, if they haven't had any fun time with mom and dad during the day, but if they protest enough, they'll get time with mom and dad at night. So we want to try and make sure that they have that sort of routine. And also the predictability of knowing this is what's coming. And again, the way we've structured, these are the tear-outs that we use, but you could get your child to do one, do it together. But you want to get your child thinking in one direction, right? Snack, bath, teeth, story, washroom, hugs and kisses. They're on their way to bed. And another one of the stories from this was a mom who had two twins, not two sets of twins and one other preschooler. And her solution in the morning was baby gates. She had a series of baby gates so that when they were done in their bedroom, the baby gate closed. And it was like, that gate is closed. There's no going back. And she just closed the series of gates and herded them out the door. If you got 3 little ones, that's a solution. But the principle, right, is what's important. So easy things to avoid, right? Right. This is a survey again of parents in the US, but 18% of preschoolers aged 3 to 5 were having one or more beverages with caffeine in them. Now, for those of you who have just had caffeine, if you don't know this already, the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. And what that means is that, the toddler who's had the Diet Coke or the Coke at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, half of that caffeine is still in their system at 9 o'clock at night. And then you factor in that you take the same number of milligrams of caffeine in, a McDonald's Coke, and you pack it into a little 50-pound thing compared to whatever, a 200, 250-pound thing, it has a more potent effect. So cutting out caffeine. And the other simple things, right? I mean, a third of preschoolers in the US have a television in their bedroom. We know that when there's a television in the bedroom, children stay up later and they get less sleep. Right? Telephones, computers, right? All those kind of distractions. We talk about it often with adolescents, but it's still an issue with preschoolers. And also, night lights, they can be wonderful things, but try and have them as dim as you can. The next is to create good sleep associations. Right? Babies often sleep very well with a pacifier, and they go to sleep, which is fine. The dilemma is when they wake up in the middle of the night, because babies wake up, and so do everybody else, and they don't have the pacifier. Then they cry out. Right? Children go to sleep great, snuggled in dad's arms on the couch, or they get so tired in the chair that they fall asleep. The dilemma is that we form associations between places and activities. So if I work with adults with insomnia, right, one of the first things we do is we change what the bed is for. It's sort of like your body's lying there going, okay, we're in bed. What are we supposed to do here? Are we supposed to sleep? Are we supposed to toss and turn? Are we supposed to think? Right? So with adults who have insomnia, the first kind of key is you only try and sleep in bed. If you're not asleep, then out you get, with a couple other exceptions. With children, right, it's a little bit different. Right? The goal here is we want to get children in preferably their own bed, whether it's with or without a sibling, ideally in their own room, in bed, awake, calm and relaxed before they go to sleep. It makes a lot of sense why parents let this happen, because you're so desperate, so if they just watch TV, then they'll fall asleep, we'll scoop them up and put them in their room. But remember, children wake up. So imagine yourself, right? You fall asleep on the couch, and then you wake up in your bed, and you're like, whoa, how'd I get here, right? So it's not just about that association, right? You want to have that consistency. Children need to learn how to fall asleep on their own. So we've understood a bit about what's normal in terms of children's sleep. We've built up a positive relationship, and we've had fun with them. We've learned to like them again. We've got a very good routine that starts at the beginning of the day. It's winding down as the night goes on, and still, right, they're having trouble getting to sleep. The truth is that for many, many parents, if you just do what I've talked about now, it's probably all you need. Lots of parents find that when they just do good routines and have consistency and consistent bedtimes and consistent times getting up, sleep problems seem to go away. But there are other things. Right? Kids have curtain calls. Mommy, your good night hug wore off. Can I just have another one? Or can I just have another drink, another trip to the washroom, another whatever? So again, children have very little control in their lives. And one of the things that, we took this idea from somebody else, but we suggest that parents give their children a pass. A little kind of card you can make up with your child, sits maybe beside their bed, and they say, Mommy, can I have a good night hug? Sure, right? You get the hug, you give me the pass, you get one, your choice of one thing. And then that's it, right? It's not going on and on, right? They trade it. So they learn that I'm good for one thing. After that, things do get more tricky. And if things haven't resolved, the next step in this program is really, all the child's needs are met, and then you really have to say, I love you, good night, I'll see you in the morning, and ideally you shut the door, if at all possible, and then you wait it out, and you check on them, but waiting increased numbers of minutes. I really don't have time to kind of go through all that, but that's the sort of next step. But again, a lot of sleep problems will be dealt with prior to that. When they wake in the night, right, if they're able to fall asleep at bedtime okay, they're less likely to have issues at night. But if they do, right, there's a couple things that work. You can go briefly check on them or allow them to go back to sleep on their own, which lots of parents do. But lots of parents, what we really recommend is doing what feels wrong. What do I mean by that? So let's say if I said, I got a new thing that I'd like some of you to do with me, it's going to hurt. Actually, you're going to be really hot and stinky and tired when it's over. And actually, you're going to be sore when it's done. Okay, everybody with me? No, but that's exercise. Like every time you think about doing exercise, you go, that's wrong. Like, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be sweaty. So every time you say no to exercise, it makes sense. But over the long term, you get out of shape, you get fat, you get coronary artery disease, and you die young. So, every time you say no to exercise, it makes sense in the short run, but over the long term, it doesn't. So these things that many parents do make a lot of sense in the short term, right? Staying with them until they're asleep, feeding them, giving a drink, reading a story. Again, this is in the middle of the night. Right? Bringing them into the adult's bed or sleeping with them. Again, it makes sense, but you really got to do what feels wrong. So the final step I said is rewards. Now, those of you who think about what's a good reward, you want it immediate and you want to be contingent with whatever the behavior is. A child does something you like, you give them a reward immediately. So let's say you've gotten to this part in the program and your child finally falls asleep. So you go in and you go, Johnny, great, you fell asleep on your own. No, that's probably not the best thing to do. So how do you reward sleep? Well, we'll take some advice from people who have done this for a while. The tooth fairy, right? A little pillow surprise, right? One of the things we want to do is we want to reward success, not perfection. So let's imagine your child's been waking up and you've been keeping track of this 3 times every night for the past 2 weeks, and you've had some success and they've fallen asleep or only woken up twice. Right? That's the time where you go in the morning and you slide some little thing underneath their pillow and you say, that's great. You're learning to sleep through the night. Because this is tough on them too. Or, maybe it's the extra cuddle time in the morning. And so this is some of the ways that you can reward their sleep. So that's the program, but does it work? Well, what we did is we worked with 207 parents. We've done this a couple different times. And these are parents who had concerns about their children's sleep. And we recruited them from 24 different family medical clinics. Most of them were birth mothers. Children were about evenly split, 47% girls. About 3/4 were age 2 and 3. And what we did is we then they filled out some forms. And then we also asked parents, how long had these problems been going on? Problems with bedtime resistance, night waking, or active comforting, meaning parents had to go in and sleep with their child or lie with them till they went to sleep. And on average, it was 2.3 years. That's hard to get your head around. If you converted this to the percentage of the child's life, 67% on average of the child's life was spent with these problems. So, this is where I'm saying by the time parents get to the point where they want help with these aren't, this hasn't been going on for a week or two. This has been going on for years. So what did we do? Well, what we did is we took these 200 and some odd parents and we had them fill out some forms for us, and then we randomly assigned them, like a flip of a coin. Half of them got the Parenting Matters program, which is a booklet containing most of the information that I've just been through this evening and a bit more too. And two phone calls from a telephone coach, about 20 minutes to just support, encourage, problem solve with them. And then the program was about 6 weeks, so about 2 months after they did the baseline, we mailed them out forms again. And then we followed them up 3 and 6 months later, and then at 6 months, right, the usual care group, who could do whatever they want, and the Parenting Matters group could do whatever they wanted plus this treatment. And we followed up with them at 12 months, but this group got the booklets mailed to them at 6 months. And what did we find? That this program showed, these are parents' ratings of their children's sleep problems on a standardized questionnaire. Their problems improved more and more rapidly than the usual care. It's not like things didn't get better in usual care, but they got better a lot more and faster. So what other interesting things did we find? Interestingly, we found that children's problems during the day improved significantly as well. Right? This was just helping parents manage their child's sleep, not talking at all about daytime. But what we found was when children's sleep improved, they had significant increase or decreases in behavior problems. And the final interesting point was that parents, we asked them about how they managed their parenting strategies, what they did to manage their children during the day, and their parenting improved. Higher scores here mean more difficulties parenting. So what this told us is that when parents learned how to manage their children's sleep problems, not only did their child's sleep improve, but the child's behavior improved during the day, and their ability to parent also improved. So hopefully that will give you a few ideas to move you on the path, because I presume many of you here are struggling with sleep issues. And I think we have time for questions.